On this episode of the Houndsman XP Podcast, Josh sits down with Ryan Crowson. Ryan is a 5-time Superstakes finalist, a 2-time Superstakes champion, a 2-time World Hunt finalist, and a world champion. Folks, Ryan Crowson epitomizes extreme performance, especially when it comes to competition coon hunting. Now, I know a lot of you watched the crowdcast last month between Josh and I, and we debated competition coon dogs versus big game hunting dogs. But I feel like I need to clarify something here. Houndsman XP is about showcasing extreme performance in whatever you choose to do with your hounds. Josh and I are on the same page when it comes to selecting guests for this podcast. We want to be able to inspire every one of us to go out and strive for that highest level of achievement that we can, regardless of what we choose to hunt with these hounds. If you want to chase mountain lions with your hounds, great, go do it. Be the best you can be. If you want to be a bear hunter, awesome. If you prefer beagles, if you prefer side hounds to chase jackrabbit, maybe you're using your hounds to chase sambar deer in the bush of Australia or leopards in South Africa. Perhaps terriers and groundwork is your game. Great. Get out there and get after it. But don't forget that we all share a common thread. There is a bond among dogmen, among hunters, among houndsmen. And that common thread is to be excellent. To have excellent hounds, to have excellent experience, and to build excellent relationships between hound and man and with our fellow hunters. This is Ryan Crowson's story and his quest for extreme performance. The Old South dog box is rocking. Let's get the tailgate down. It's time to dump the box.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Josh Michaelis here with the Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my good friend, Ryan Crowson. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Good to see you, man.
We got down to Oklahoma this evening. I'm on the road with Joy, and I've been selling dog food down in Texas, and Ryan welcomed me to his home and his lovely wife, and we're sitting here at Ryan's table. And for those that don't know, most of the listeners are going to know, Ryan, I kind of got his resume when I sat down, because I couldn't even remember how many Super Stakes you'd won. It was enough.
Well,
and you had been in the finals of 5, you said.
Mm-hmm.
You're a world champion.
Yep.
What else have you won?
Won the truck with Hoochie Mama, and
yeah.
I think in 2009, I think's when that was. And yeah, I've been lucky. I've had some good luck at the hunts, that's for sure.
Now, Ryan, when did I meet you? 2001, 2002, something like that?
Close to it.
Yeah, and we were at Battle of the Breeds down at Ada.
Ada, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
yep.
and I rode around with you guys on the cast, and we had a ball.
Yep, that's
it was fun.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, and you and my brother have been really good friends since then, and me and you have been good friends since then, and I just appreciate you sitting down with me, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
But first, Ryan, tell me, most people don't know, how'd you get started doing all this? Do you remember your first coon hunt ever?
I do, and I grew up I was born in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, down, eastern Oklahoma, and that's where the old red fern grows. Mm-hmm. The book was wrote, and the movie, all that stuff.
The bosom of coon hunting.
Yeah, and there is a lot of hunters and a lot of coon hunting history around there. I don't get down there that often. It's a couple hours away, and how we moved up here when I was in first grade, and
mm-hmm.
But I remember I used to cry. I'd watch my cousins going hunting. They had a bunch of dogs. They lived in between Tahlequah and Holbert. Brian Craig and Jerry Craig, and they'd go hunting, and my grandma, or they wouldn't let me go. I was just too little. I mean, heck, I'm probably 4 or 5 years old, and I got into horses. My grandfather, he trained racing horses down at Sallisaw, but when we moved to little town community of Wewoka, I mean, I had a dire friend down the road. Man, he had coon dogs, and I couldn't wait, and I'd begged. I finally, I was about 10 years old, I got to hunting with him. And that spawned over. I met a guy down there by the name of George Possum Porter. You guys know him?
I do.
And that dude would come get me. And I ain't in it. We about I had a walker dog. Didn't know he had an ailment. We dang near killed that dog hunting him. We hunted every night.
Yeah.
And we used to squall coons out and rerun them. We didn't have an abundance of coon back then like we do now. But man, that guy, bless his heart, he spent a lot of time with me, growing up. And
so you'd squall them coons out so you could have another track there.
Yeah, we'd rerun them. We didn't think nothing about it. I mean, we hunted. I mean, competition hunting. I mean, I actually started out showing dogs, believe it or not.
Really?
And I really loved it. And I didn't have much luck in these hunts. I've probably hunted 50 or 60 of them before I ever got close to winning. Just local UKC hunts. Club hunts and had a lot of fun though.
What was your first dog that you had that was just yours and nobody else's?
I had my first dog. I went through a few dogs, but I had a walker dog, a lipper. There was a lot of lipper dogs in this country, and I actually rode up to Max with the guys, and they bred an old female, and I had some pups out of some of that stock of dogs, but I had an old dog I called him Sharp, and that after old George Sharp, that was one of my first dogs I can remember having.
What was it like? Was it a pretty good dog?
Looking back, the best I remember, he wasn't bad. I mean, just a typical old trailing dog. They'd always be together. Back in them days, you'd never see a dog off by itself, much. And I was probably about 15 or 16, and maybe a little. I got an old female. The first real great dog I ever had was an old female named Sneaker, and I got second in the Purina race. I think I graduated high school in '97, and I think in '98 I ran her all over the country there.
Was that lipper dog the first one you started putting in hunts?
No. The first dogs I hunted in hunts probably were. I had an old female out of Wessel's Wild Casey, and that's the first dog that I ever won a cast with too.
Really?
Yep. And I ended up selling her to a guy named Larry Schultz. And from then, I met Jess Dickerson, and I'd hunt several dogs for him. I mean, nailer dogs, and even old Skip and Skipper and Tipper. I mean, I hunted all them dogs, and I mean, I was pretty blessed with. I got to find out at an early age what a top dominating type of dog was. I got to see that.
I've got Jess scheduled to be on this podcast.
He'll be a good one.
I was actually going down there last Sunday, and I was going to drive down to Archie and go to Jess's house and sit down with him just like I am you. Mm-hmm. And can you believe that I was a half hour from the house and Jess called me and canceled? Can you believe that? Out of Jess Diggers.
I can believe it. Yeah.
But you mentioned old Tipper, and I'm going to talk to Jess about Tipper too. That was the first wild, crazy coon dog I ever laid eyes on. Mm-hmm. And I was 21 years old, 20 years old, or something like that. And we hunted a lot of dogs that would hunt hard and do what they needed to do. But she was crazy. Mm-hmm. That dog had a freaking screw loose, Ryan.
Yeah, I tell you though, she was.
But she had her coons.
She was a dominant dog. Probably if we would have had Garmins, and I guarantee you if Jess could look back on that dog, that dog probably should have won a world hunt.
Yeah.
I mean,
how many miles do you think that dog covered in her life? I mean, it was unreal the amount of ground she would travel.
There's no telling. I remember we used to wait until the conditions got really bad, frosty.
Yeah.
Dogs weren't doing a lot, and that's when we'd turn old Tip loose because we knew that sucker would go find a coon somewhere and sound good doing it.
Yeah, and who knows where she was going to be when she found it.
Never know. We'd just go, Yeah.
So you started hunting in some hunts, and like you said, you had 50, 60 casts before you had any success.
Oh, there's no telling.
Do you remember your first cast win?
I do. I kind of do.
Tell me about it.
Well, I don't remember a lot of the details. I just remember that little female out of Wild Casey. She was pretty wild, type of dog, and I remember I won a cast at a qualifying RQE, and man, I was just on cloud nine,
Yeah.
And then I ended up selling her, went to the zones, and I sold her when I was at the zones.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even get through. I won another cast there with her, but I didn't have enough to get through. And back then, you about had to win both nights to get through.
It was tough back then, especially in UKC.
Oh, yeah.
That's where everybody was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you sell her for? How much?
I believe $3,500.
Pretty good chunk of change for a dog back then.
It was, and you know, I pilfered around there and messed with some other dogs and stuff. I had another old dog called Gun before her, the one we about killed. He was already a titled out dog, and Mr. Buddy Gilbert down in Arkansas, he ended up buying that dog from me, that Gun dog from me.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was near as good as what Buddy and them thought he was. You know, I mean, the dog was decent, but he wasn't the caliber of dogs that they had at that time. You know, they had some pretty good dogs back then.
What'd you move on to after that? What dog?
Well,
I know because the way we do things, and we go through a lot of dogs.
Oh,
we still do.
I have too in my life, buddy.
But you've also went through. You find those dogs until you find a special one like D or something like that we're going to talk about later, and dogs that you've kept quite a while too.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been blessed and lucky, whatever you want to call it. I've thought back. I was thinking back the other day. You know, we bred and raised a litter of dogs off a rat attack.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a dominating litter. Witch Doctor was in that litter, which T. John, you know, got him going and sold him. And I had one named Death Wish.
Yep.
I sold her to Terry Walker and Ronnie Smith.
Yep.
And they done a bunch of winning, won the Superstakes with her.
Yep.
Brad had another one that Kenny Mason ended up with, Hannah. That was probably the best one of the bunch, and she got second, I think, in the UKC world, and won. You know, done a bunch of winning. But I were out of an old female named Witch, and that female had every time that we bred her, we got great dogs, and I hunted them dogs for years, and I really don't know why or how I got away from them.
Yeah,
but. I mean, I did, and along them lines, I had another female named Bebe that was out of Tequila Sunrise and High Knot. I bought her, and me and my wife picked her up at the truck hunt. She was 6.5, 7 weeks old. And I knew that was going to be a special dog. She never got sick, never had an accident.
Yeah.
We kept her. My wife kept her in the casino in the room, and then when we come home, and she made another world class type of dog. And I mean, I had 3 real good females. I had Bebe. I had a female that R.D. Trout and them ended up buying named Fancy.
Yep.
That I think Fancy may have won the Superstakes too, thinking back on that. And then I had a female, one of my favorite dogs of all time. I won Russ Meyer's hunt with her. Let's see here. I think I won it 2 nights. That was the year they had a bad flood, and that was the first time it ever got split. We ended up staying over, and we couldn't hunt. But I got her in the final 6 of the PKC World, and I was working a bunch, and that was probably my furthest I'd ever made it out there at Aurora. And I came home, and the next hunt I went to Iola to the pro showcase down there.
Yep.
And I ended up getting in a cast, just one of them casts you'll have. It was a bunch of bad deals happened to me, and I kind of got mad, and I ended up pricing that dog. And I'd already sold these other 2. Well, I ended up quitting. I sold that dog for quite a bit of money, and I quit hunting there for about 2 months.
With a lot of people hunt, they say, "Well, I quit hunting and it's 2 or 3 years," and when you quit hunting, it's 2 months.
Well, and I sold everything. I sold my dog box, my tracking system.
You pulled a Jeremy McCaleb.
I did, and man, I was working, and I'd come home, and my wife's finally like, "Hey, I don't have any other hobbies though.
Right.
I don't deer hunt. I don't turkey hunt. I got into coyote calling there a little bit, and got into squirrel hunting some too. I really enjoy that, but there ain't a lot of room for me to do what I do with doing anything else.
Yeah.
I allocate too much time to these dogs, probably as it is. But anyways, back to that dog, I ended up selling her, and they ended up that bitch won quite a. She was doing a bunch of winning still, and she got run over going to the PKC truck hunt that's going on tonight.
Yeah,
they let her out of the kennel instead of her going to the truck. She ran off. She ended up getting run over.
Yeah, and
I always thought that dog's held up. I mean, I've held a lot of dogs to her standards. You know, I really like that dog, and a lot of people never got to see that dog. Really, I mean, a few guys probably remember, but I really miss that dog. I really liked her. And then Hoochie Mama was a real close carbon copy of that dog. Maybe Hoochie probably maybe a little bit different style, but they were similar styles. You know.
Let's take a quick break here, and we're going to get into styles and the different things about dogs. You talked about Hoochie Mama was a different style, so we're going to pause this real quick for a commercial, and then we are going to come back and talk about that. All right, Ryan, you're talking about Hoochie Mama, and you said she was a different style. And describe, the difference between those two females, and when you talk about style, because this is something a lot of guys that listen to this are big game hunters, or they're running beagles, or they're, all kinds of hunters are listening to this thing. And when we talk about a style of a dog, it entails a lot in what a dog does and how it acts and how, everything from the way it uses its mouth and to the way it hunts. So how were those two dogs different?
Well, that girl female was real reckless, and I mean, she was wild. Probably ran by some coons other dogs might could tree, but she was fast and whatever she was doing, she was fast at it.
Yeah.
And Hooch never ran by a coon, but yet was fast and would go. But old Hooch she could tree coons just with, it seemed like didn't use hardly any energy doing it. Never had to worry about her running off game, getting in a dog fight. Didn't worry if a dog treed a coon on her. She was, if there was a coon there, she was going to get some of that coon. And I've got some pretty memorable casts that I can remember. Just she beat these guys so bad. I mean, they were just in awe of her. I mean, there were a lot of guys that tried to buy her also, and really, honestly, that's the first dog that I ever actually hunted that we didn't ever sell it. Before that, I sold every dog I'd ever got my hands on, and let other people go on and win all kinds of stuff with them and enjoy them, And I had them, for a small part of their life, but I mean, they were pretty much trained dogs when they left me, and them guys paid a lot of money for them also,
Was it something that, because, you look at now, the dog's more valuable because of the money that you can win with it. Right. But back then, there wasn't a $6,500 Pro Classic every weekend. There wasn't all these money hunts where you could just travel 2 or 3 hours every weekend, and make a lot of money on a dog. So financially, for a lot of guys, especially like me, I sold everything. I sold young dogs because it was you make more profit than you would hunting them for a $50 hunt at a $110 cast win or something.
Yeah, you would look at a whole lifetime of a dog trying to win. Maybe make the dog a platinum champion, or maybe win 30 or 40,000 with the dog. And now, Lord, you can win.
Yeah,
there's a few guys that are winning close to 100,000, plus a year.
And then you look at it was hard to make a platinum champion back then.
It was.
It was hard. The dog would be 6-7 years old, and it would finally win its $20,000.
Yeah, and the dog would be on its way out.
Right.
The dog would have already got all the good out of him.
But if you can sell that dog as a 2-year-old for $20,000, you're actually money ahead.
Yeah, or more.
Right. Right.
Wow.
So it's a different world now, and we talked about styles and how things have changed and how these dogs are different. Well, what are the styles? Are you seeing different styles in dogs now that you were back then when you were before all these Pro Classics got so big?
Well, there's always been a common denominator to me in a dog in winning at a higher. When I say at a higher competition level, it's really not higher, but when you go to the world hunts, the super stakes, the dog's got to be able to do two things. It's got to be under a coon. Whether it trees it or another dog trees it, it's got to be accumulating plus points. And under a coon's the only way you can do it. Mm-hmm. But also that dog's got to be flawless. It can't be giving any points away. And what I've noticed today in a lot of these dogs that are really hard to beat, there's a few of them that I've seen that will give points away, and they still are contender. And really, Meltdown would. That dog could overcome some minus. And Ruby, Wes's Ruby.
Yep.
Now, pretty much that ends the subject on a dog getting you in trouble.
Yep.
There isn't many of them that can win. They just can't overcome it. Now, them two dogs right there, they could.
Now, that's one thing that we always look for is it doesn't make any mistakes.
That's right.
That dog ain't going to hurt you. That dog ain't going to hurt you. It ain't going to draw any minus. That's huge.
Yep. And I've noticed and I've overheard people say over the years when I was hunting D around, it was almost like that they're like, hey, I kind of expected her to do a little bit more. And I'm like, well, at the end of the night, there was 2 coons treed. She treed both of them.
Yeah.
Or there was 1 coon treed. She treed the only coon. And there's been a lot of casts I've been involved in where, man, dogs may tree a few coons starting out and they get in trouble. And at the end of the night, I got old D treed in there. Got to have the coon to win. And she would have them coons.
I was gonna talk about D later, but D's one of my favorites.
Yep.
I just because me, I like reliability.
Yep.
I just want something that's going to be reliable and it's going to be the same every time you turn it loose. And I didn't hunt with D as much when she was young, but the last couple of years before D died, you had been up at the house a few times. I got to hunt with her quite a bit.
Yep.
And it was the same thing you was saying. We'd turn Bella and one of Jeremy's, or I'd turn Trick, and we'd be turning dogs loose all night long, and we'd just keep hunting them. And man, some of them dogs for the first hour just look like they're put a wampin on D. And then by the end of the night, there's old D under another coon, and another coon, and another coon.
Yep.
And it just, reliability is important, and D was reliable.
Yep. And I call that flawless, a flawless dog, And what I mean by that, sometimes a dog like that, they're not getting a lot done early.
Yeah.
And then when they went to 90-minute casts, I told Johnny, I said, this may be a problem, which D was getting some age on her, and we lost her at an early 8. I mean, I had just won the biggest PKC hunt in Oklahoma with her, at Quapaw. I mean, it paid $14,000, I think $14,000 or $15,000, and at the time it was the biggest payout we'd had here.
Yep.
And then 2 to 3 weeks later, we've got her in all these vet offices trying to find out what's wrong with her, and then we put her down New Year's Eve. It was a rough day for me. Last year on New Year's Eve, it wasn't good. But your brother called me and said, "Hey, I'm sending Venus down."
Yeah.
I mean, we'd had entries for some hunts, and we didn't have any. I mean, we didn't really have nothing, But it was a rough deal. But OD, I always thought in my mind, man, this dog could be getting a little bit more done here and there. But then I would look back and think, hey, maybe if she would have been, I wouldn't have been in them flawless scenarios I'm talking about where I win a cast off one coon and maybe another dog trees 2, but he's gotten in trouble.
Yeah, a dog unlike D that'll take a chance.
Yep.
And there's no leaves on, or it makes a bad tree, or it leaves a tree or something like that because it ain't quite right, and then you're not in that position to win at the end of the hunt.
Right.
With old D, who treed 1 coon in the first hour and 2 coons in the second.
That's it.
Instead of 3 coons in the first 45 minutes and then fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, D was special. D was one of my favorites. But I want to talk also about all your Superstakes success because that's crazy. I've never been a big. I don't go to Superstakes very often. Now, it's not that I don't like it. It's a fun hunt, especially the spring. I like the spring Superstakes.
I do too. I love the spring. I really do.
And I took Colin out there and got him in one year, and I took Blinken out there the year after that. And that's pretty much my only Superstakes, hunts that I've been to,
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like at the Superstakes, right, and it may be a different dog, from one year to the next or something like that, but it seems like that's a hunt that you've always done well in. And why is that? Or is it something you gear towards? You want to go out there and win Superstakes and you hunt for it? Or?
Well, I tell you, it's people are probably going to be shocked, but this is the God's honest truth. I really put a lot of time in. I remember like in D, getting her ready. And I went out there with her as a 2-year-old, and I believe this is maybe the only time I ever took her to Salem, Illinois, and didn't win money. But I told Johnny right after that Superstakes, I said, something's not right with this dog. And she had a she had some bacteria issues, and it was from chewing on a dead deer.
Yeah.
But it was a regional thing, and I'd went to a pro hunt in Iowa, and I told I'm lucky. I've got 3 vets here I use, and they're pretty stinking good. They're dog vets, and they're OSU graduates, Oklahoma State University. And I mean, these guys and girls are sharp. And we got her on some medicine, and believe it or not, I was working on the oil rigs, and I've got a good friend that lives down the road he hunted with me a lot with Dee. He's raising a family now, and he still goes a little bit with me. He just doesn't have time. But I would leave her at his house, and he would help me. But from her 2-year-old Super Stakes, I hunted her one time, and then I won the world hunt. I pleasure hunted that dog one night.
No way.
And no one's going to believe. I mean, people won't hardly believe this. Yeah. But I just took her out. We'd given her all this medicine. And we'd been swimming that dog a little bit. Jace would when I was gone, and he was riding her he had a mountain bike, and he was riding her some, so she was in shape. But the night I hunted her, she treated a couple coons, and she was in there running something that I didn't think was right, and I went in there and got after her. And then she picked this same track up. I'm thinking in my mind now, and went out of here. And while I drove around, I was gonna give her a coon. Before I go, she had a bobcat treed.
Really?
And she treed several. But that was the last thing she treed before I went to that world hunt. I won that world hunt with her. Which, you can say what you want to say. I mean, that's a fact, But
What dogs did you win the Super Stakes with?
Your brother's Venus.
Yep.
And my Super Stakes is crazy, but I won it with Venus, and I won it with a little female that we raised out of Hoochie Mama and Zeb 3 semen.
Yeah.
We ended up buying all that semen. We used semen on that litter, then we ended up going back and buying it all from Brad Mitchell. And funny thing, we've got a bitch right now. We're about to breed to it. She's in heat. She's at Altus, at All Pet. We moved all the semen there, but a little female named KC, and Johnny had hunted her all summer. And he calls me and he says, it's getting around Labor Day, and I don't hunt a lot in the summer.
Yeah.
We work a lot of longer hours, and there's it's pretty rough here in Oklahoma. And I'm not scared of snakes or anything. It's just dry and it's hot and it's rough on the dog. Well, Johnny calls me, says, I want to bring her to you. We have a hunt every year at McAllister called the Little Dixie, and that's where I kind of get the old rust beat off. And anyways, he brought her up, and I got her in the finals the first night, the second night. I may have got her in every night, but we hunted them off, and I got 4th every night, persimmon trees. And the Super Stakes was a week later, and I told Johnny, I said, man, this dog's gutted. He said, well, you need to, keep her kind of hunted because we're leaving, on Monday. Yep. Man, when we go out there, that dog, I hunted all week, and I'm ready to come home. I mean, I won one cast one night, and but the last night I got her in and then rolled on through it and won it, the guys all made a bad tree in the final cast, and she's a dog that kind of would do that. A persimmon was kind of her kryptonite, but luckily I was leash locked, and I always felt like I hate being leash locked, but that's one of the reasons I won. She couldn't do one, And the funny thing with Venus, I took her out there, and your brother, we were already made our minds up. We didn't get in by Thursday. We were going to take her to the UKC finals. Yep. And he'd got both of his dogs through the zones, and she hadn't made a tree all week. She's just in run mode. And I told Jeremy that Thursday they were peeling out, headed up to Indiana, and I told Jeremy, there's no way I'm driving 3 more hours. I said, we're done here. Yep. And then, man, I texted him that night. As soon as that cast was over, I said, she's back. Yep. And I mean, I'm going to tell you, she did beat them dogs bad. I mean, probably one of the most dominating performances of a dog I've ever seen a dog do every round. I mean, there wasn't even any chance of her losing. I mean, she just dominated.
I know Venus was like that. When the coons aren't down and moving or the tracking conditions are super tough and she's trying to find her coon, she covers a lot of ground.
She does, and she's looking for the type of coon she wants. You know?
And when she started finding them out there that week, boy, was she finding them.
Yeah, she is a dandy of a little dog. Yeah. I really like that dog too. Yeah.
What about the other You've been in the finals 5 times too.
Yep. I had another female, a good little female, and Her name was Dee Dee. She was off of Big D and Beller's Inn. That was a good cross. There were several dogs. Well, I took her to the spring, and I just won the truck up with Hooch. Mm-hmm. And I was telling Johnny I was actually hunting that dog for a guy, and we ended up partnering on her. And man, I hadn't got her in first. I'd hunted her early and late every night. I'd won early every night, and that guy called me and he said, "Hey, if that dog ain't good enough to get in, get rid of it. You don't even have to hunt tonight. Go home." I said, "Oh no." I said, this is why there's 4 nights to qualify. Sometimes it's rough. Well, I got her in that night. She put on a heck of she looked really good in the late round, and then ended up getting in the finals. And I got second or third. That Sodbuster dog really dominated that finals. He'd been trained there, and it's just like he knew where every coon. Yeah. He had us beat. We were hunting for placement. We couldn't beat him that night. And then I hunted another dog for a good friend of mine, Alan Stonecipher, that Chuck and Colton Dunlap had trained this dog, and Alan had bought him. And there wasn't nothing to do with him. This dude was. I told Alan, I said, that dog needs to be out there, and Alan said, yeah. And anyways, I called and told Chuck, I said, hey, I'm headed to Superstakes this dog. And he is a dandy of a dog. And I don't hunt males. I won't hardly ever hunt a male, but I like that dog. He's no trouble. I really like that little dog. And I got him in the first night, and I sat out there all week. And then he looked outstanding in the semifinal round. And then we get in the finals. That dog, I don't know what he done. I think he caught a coon, and he over there chewed on that coon or something. I didn't ever get in there to him, and by the time he got rolling after that, I think I got third with him there.
Yeah.
And
that was the same dog I drew you with
at the World Hunt. Yes,
yep.
That's him.
Yeah, that's a good little dog.
Oh, he is a dandy of a dog. He sure is. That dog hadn't even. That dog, there's no telling what that little dog's going to win in his lifetime. When he gets to go, he's going to do some damage. He's hard to beat.
You talk about you don't hunt males very often, and I wasn't in that camp until here recently. Why is it that you prefer females, Ryan?
Well, there's a lot of variables that a male has to deal with. You draw a female that's maybe having a false cycle. She's not showing to be in heat, but her scent glands or she might be smelling a little. And you draw a dog that you may not have. You may have the easiest going dog in the world, and you line them up to turn them loose. They may look over at another one for some reason and just freak out. And a female, I don't know. I don't like a male. I just really never have. I've only had a couple here that I've kept and hunted. And I've sold all of them. And I knew when I was training them, hey, I may not ever hunt this dog in a hunt. I'm going to get him ready. And I sold a real good dog to White Wright. He was a baby. His name's Power Ranger. He's out of Power Packing Easy. Yeah. Me and my buddy Richard Hulls were partners on him, and that dog was a really outstanding young dog. And we sold him to Wyatt, and I think they've enjoyed that dog a bunch. Yeah. But he wasn't mean or anything. But I've seen stuff happen, especially in some of these elimination style hunts that these dogs get put out of. It's really not their fault. It's situational, and that's why I've never put a lot of faith in a male. Yeah. And I know the males dominate a lot of the hunts. They just do. They're stronger. They hold up better. A lot of people say, but I like to have a female that's a female trapped in a male's body. Yeah. That's how old Dee was, and this young female I got laying here, she's going to be a stouter type female like that. She's a bigger female, and I like a dog with some size too. If I can.
It's a lot about longevity.
It is.
I can't. And just as well as I do, you've hunted with the dogs I have. You've hunted with the dogs that Jed's had and stuff, with Shock and Bones and Ralph and all these male dogs that we burn up, and they just can't keep it together for as long. You look at Dee. Dee was winning late in her career, and all these females that you sold and hunted, and they won late in their career. Mm-hmm. And we get the same thing out of scent. We get the same thing out of rain. We get the same thing out of females, and we can't get it out of the males.
Yeah, sometimes, you go to breeding a male, and it's going to change him a little bit. He's not going to have that eye of the tiger and that drive and that desire. He's thinking about other options, and that's just, Mother Nature's, taking her course on that. But, I mean, it's hard for a male, I think, to hold up. I mean, you look at that topper dog down. Them dogs are stout, even in older age. Them are great dogs,
Yeah. Meltdown was such a freak.
He was
a freak.
He was.
I mean, there ain't no two doubts about it.
And the little Z dog, I've got to hunt with him a couple times. He's a powerful little dog too. I mean, he really is. He's just an exceptional dog too.
Well, speaking of freaks, I want to talk about D more.
Yeah.
Tell me about, because we all want to win a world championship. I know there's hunts that pay more now, and you can go win a new truck, and you can go win but I was just talking to this about Jed the other day on the podcast, and the PKC World Championship is the hardest hunt in the world to win. Oh. I feel that. Maybe Nationals probably a little harder.
Nationals may be harder.
Yeah.
I've got real close there.
Yeah.
The year Jed won it, me and old D, I thought, man, we were rolling, and we had a coon jump out.
Yeah.
The cast is over. If I've got this coon, I'm sitting good. We're walking to her. We get, maybe 100 yards from her in corn stubble. And we hear something coming. Old D shuts up. We hear something coming. It's a big old coon running right at us. Well, here in a second, here comes old D. And I'm done at that point. Cheeseburger won the cast with a good little female. And then, you win. Whoever, we were hunting heads up. Whoever wins goes to finals. Yeah. Shane Patton was judging that cast. It's just a weird cast. Yeah. I had that. I mean, Jeff's dog looked good. I can't remember that little dog's name. Sweet Pea.
Yeah.
Yep. She's a good little dog.
Yeah, I remember Cheeseburger hunting her.
And she looked good on some coons in that cast too, and deserved to win had she won. And I was sick because I had that Nationals, boy. That's a hunt I've been. That's one of that may be the only dang hunt I haven't won yet that PKC's had. But
tell me about your world hunt with D.
Oh, it was a roller coaster. But I'll tell you, I mean. I worked out on the oil rig, so I was gone 2 weeks out of the month. Yeah. So 6 months of that dog's life, she set. Well, my buddy Jace, we were doctoring her and giving her all that medicine, and she wasn't in the greatest shape. But that time of year, you want a dog to have some energy. You don't want to be over hunting.
Yeah,
I'd rather one be a little bit fresh because they're gonna get in some shape while you're there. I mean, you're there all week, and they're not resting good. They're not eating good. There's just a lot of variables. But I remember hunting that dog. I remember I drew a heck of a cast. A buddy of mine had sold a dog out of Bone Collector named Nut, and Steve Yant was hunting him. He had won the Little World Hunt with him. I mean, this dog, and then I drew Maggie with Mark Hall. I mean, that bitch, she'd been in the finals of the World Hunt, won the truck, and I've got this, 2-year-old female out there. And I remember I won that late round. Just like I said, old D, their dogs had made a few bobbles. Mm-hmm. Old D just kind of kept going, and she treated a coon in a persimmon. We go to walking in, I can smell them persimmons. We have them everywhere. Yeah. And I'm just tying her up thinking, oh, man, this was on Wednesday night. Yeah. Well, Chris Saunders was judging, and Chris said, well, I got the groceries right here. And the hunt was over. So that's how it doubled up. The next round, it was real rough, raining. We didn't have a good hunt. But old D, she treated a slick persimmon and treated a coon. And I ended up winning that cast. Well, the late round, I drew Barry Kitty. I drew another heck of a tough cast, and old D, I mean, she rolled. She treed. I don't remember how many she treed, but I knew towards the end, didn't matter what happened, no one could win. We were just waiting for the time. And then I draw Ronnie Smith heads up, and me and Ronnie, he bought Death Wish from me, and man, I've known that guy since I was a kid. That guy's won a lot of hunts. He really wasn't the guy. Yeah. When you get in that final six, though, you go to looking around, and no one wants to draw any of them. It's you're just there, and we draw Ronnie, and I can't remember. I think Brad Durham was our judge, and I remember going out, and old D, she done this a lot. I remember we cut them dogs, and Ronnie's just fired, and old D, we could hear her. She'd leave on a walk a lot of times. Yeah. Well, man, Ronnie's dogs struck and treed 200, and we get in there, monster tree, still had full of leaves, big oak. They're shining, they're beating. I'm listening. I finally strike OD in. She's a trailing. And, man, they've shined 3 or 4 minutes, and I thought, I was shining. I was kind of thinking, man, this dog ain't got no coon here, just old circle tree. And I remember.
If you're like me, I kind of throw my light in the air to make it look good every night. I ain't looking for that coon.
I was listening to my dog, I'll be honest with you.
I would be too. I ain't looking for that coon. That judge will find that coon.
But way out on a limb that they had already thoroughly shined with spotlights, way out on this limb, I see a coon blink at me. And then I had to make a choice.
Yep.
But I did. I called Brad over and Ronnie. I said, here's your coon. And, I mean, we'd been shining 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they probably overlooked this coon. But I remember asking Ronnie jokingly, this is pretty much the end to me because he's going to be loose. Mine didn't even treat yet. Well, about that time mine gets treed. And I remember asking Ronnie, I said, my only hope is if he'd go back to that tree. Ronnie looked at me, he said, Ryan, he's never went back to a tree.
He shouldn't have said that, I bet.
Listen, we cut that dog, and he just cartwheels. Goes straight back. Well, I tree OD. Yeah. She's treed now. We go to her, I'm on a den. So I'm 200 down. Yeah. Cutting back for.
Now Ronnie's happy that dog's back on that tree.
Yeah, because now he's going to make me strike for a quarter, and he did. And then he trees. As soon as I get struck, he trees his dog. We go back, and by the time when we get to him, old D's treat again.
Yeah.
She's starting to get the old train rolling.
Yeah.
But I don't tree her. I make him lead that dog right back where he was. They cut him. He cartwheels and goes right back.
Oh, man.
And as soon as he goes back, I tree.
Yeah.
So we go to OD, and Ronnie tells me going to her, he said, Ryan, I'm not going to make you cut her. When we get to her and you get her handled, I'm going to leash lock you. And he said, if he's back, you're going to get to rest her. Yeah. I mean, we've only hunted 40 minutes.
Yeah. Ronnie Smith's he's a good dog man.
Oh, he's a good dog.
The fact that his dog went back to that tree, when he says it never has, I'll guarantee you it never had.
I guarantee you, I don't know that the dog, that was a good dog. He'd won the Superstakes. Yeah. The dog's name was Willie. He was a good little dog. He got that dog from Keith Medley. Anyways, Ronnie, he did. When we got to OD, she had a coon that time, which I'm still beat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still in a bad bind. I mean, and if Ronnie's dog trees another coon, I'm going to have to treat 2 more, you know. Well, anyways, he leash locks when we go back. He's back again. They scratch him. So I got to rest that dog a good while. And I remember going out. I was in the finals of the World Hunt, and I got second in 08 with a little blue female that we haven't mentioned that had – I always called her Secretariat. Yeah. You've heard the war stories on him. Yeah. He had a big heart. There ain't a dog I've ever seen that had a big heart.
Well, let's just pause and talk about her because I don't know anything about this dog.
Well, I'm going to tell you, her name was Hemi. She's blue tick. She was a Grand Night champion, Smoky River bred blue tick female, and she came local. Guy by the name of Trey Melton, outstanding dog man and coon hunter, and just a heck of a good guy. He lives down around Muskogee, Oklahoma, down in that country. Well, I drew her in some local events back when I had Old Girl, and I told him one night, I said, if you ever want to sell that dog, you call me. Well, man, I wasn't even. I had a female at the time out of Trackman and a skipper female that was a good female.
Yeah,
and that guy calls me just out of the blue and says, hey, I'm going to sell that dog. She's about 4 years old, maybe 5. I said, man, I'm not really looking, but I said, I'd like to try her. And he sent her up here to me. And the first few nights, I thought, this thing is junk. But she hadn't been hunted. She'd been on pups. Well, I grabbed her up one night and gave her just a little bitty switching. And from that night forward, the rest was history. I won Russ Myers with her.
That's right. I know what dog you're talking about now. I couldn't remember. Yeah, I know what dog
I won it, and I won. I just ran into my judge over the weekend at Claremore, Garvin Wiley, and he remembered them casts and kind of refreshed my memory. He said, Ryan, they didn't know one have anything for her up there. I mean, she just destroyed these casts. Yeah. I mean, looked awesome. Well, I won Russ Meyer one night, got second one night, and the third night, Ronnie Smith beat me, but I had treed her on a fence. It wasn't her fault that we didn't win. We should have won. But anyways, I had been in the finals with Hemi, and I was real nervous. We ended up hunting an hour.
Yeah.
And I knew, I mean, that fit right down my dog's alley. And I had this hunt won. I ended up getting minus on a deal, and that isn't what beat me. I ended up treeing this dog out of, I guess you think you get nervous and you're behind, and she ended up getting treed in the ground, and I knew better than to tree her. But anyways, I ended up getting second. Well, I had a lot to think about after that. I thought, I'll never get back in the finals of a world hunt. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. There's so many variables. I'm not counting the dogs. I'm just talking about a coon.
Yeah.
You can strike the wrong coon, and it can take you out of a cast, go in a rock pile, dozer, den. It can change the outcome of everything.
Well, just that den tree, we were talking about me and you drawing last year at the World Hunt.
That's right.
We got that. We know it's a coon, but you can't score it. You can't get it out. It's in there.
We got him in the thermal.
You could see it through the thermal, but you can't do nothing about it.
If the hole would have been 4 or 5 inches lower, we could have seen him. Yeah.
Or if that coon was 10 yards away from where she started that track instead of where it was, it's a million different things can go wrong to get in the finals of the world.
Well, I was thinking at the club, I had a lot of time to think, because these other casts, man, they hunted right down to the end. So I'm at that club for 2.5 hours out in my truck. And the longer I'm in that truck, I'm getting nervous. Mm-hmm. And I don't get nervous. Yeah. I'm getting a little sick at my stomach.
This is good. This is good for me too, Ryan, because I think of Ryan Crowson. I think of guys like you that have been in all these hunts, and I get some nerves when I'm in the finals of a pro classic or something like that. I'm like, well, Ryan ain't nervous. None of these guys get nervous.
Well, I was talking to some real good friends of mine, Mike Williams, Philip Gwynn, Rusty Chrisman. They were pleasure hunting. They were waiting on this thing to go, and we're on the phone, and I'm telling them, Mike, I'm fixed to puke. And he's like, oh, settle down, And they're like, and Philip's like, you're going to be all right. And Philip Gwynn, he's been in the finals of World Hunt too with Tide years ago. It's probably 94, 95, a real dog. He went to Aurora, Kentucky, and he got second with old Tide. And Philip's coached me up. And anyways, I kept telling myself, you're not going to give this one away. They might take it from you and beat you, but you're not going to give it away. And right out of the box, she trees a persimmon, and I hear the coon. By the time I'm tying her, I hear this freaking coon bail. It wasn't in her tree. He was in the surrounding area. But I start that cast off 150 in the hole. I'm dead in third. I can't. There's no way. And I'm just sick. And the first couple trees old D makes are dens. And I'm so paranoid, I shine them just for a second. Just a minute or so, and I'm like, I got to get her loose. I've got to get 2 coons treed. Well, they end up treeing a coon, but one dog gets minused on it. So the Homer dog of Brendan's, he's got this coon treed. It's pretty much over. Well, the next tree we make in there, Brendan trees, I tree. Well, I know that dog didn't sound right. His leaves. Ends up, we end up having to call time, and there's like 20-something minutes left. I'm freaking still sick. Well, we flip these dogs. It's a frosty cut corn, and there's a pasture road, some timber right there. Mm-hmm. I remember cutting them dogs, and I thought, I'm not sending mine down the road. And old D was an artist at this. She didn't want to be with them dogs anyway. And I could put her between my legs. I could send that dog any direction, usually. Well, I just pushed her over here in these woods. It looked coony. And we were in an awesome place. Yeah. Sure enough, there's bomb down this road. She falls out there and strikes. And I remember they treed their dogs. And I remember looking across that frosty field, and old D's taking this coon track across that frost. And the guy, David Ellsworth, he comes over to me. He said, Ryan, she was going to tree that coon. Yeah. He said,
David Ellsworth's got some good spots.
Oh, this place is beautiful. Yeah. And I said, it's probably going to a den. He said, I don't think so. He said, she'll tree him in there. We go to these dogs, and they're on a den. And here's the old rule that everybody's, it's under controversy now, the old leash lock. Mm-hmm. I leash lock them. And at the time, I've got to have a coon. If I've got this coon, I win this world hunt. About the time I'm snapping her up the tree, the buzzer goes off. We back up, and there's a gob of us out there. Yeah. We back up. This is a monster, big red oak. We're fully leaved. I back up there. A good friend of mine, Josh Michaelis, had gave me a squaller. It's sitting over there. It's over there right now. I've never blew that squaller again. I blow that squaller, and it looked like a badger. He stuck his head out of this. His coon's in a nest. And I mean, he looked at me. No one else sees him. I'm like, I got him. But he goes back in. And I thought, oh, my gosh. Well, I get over there, and Brad Durham, he's over there with me.
What was the feeling like when that coon popped its head up and you don't know? Because you know how it is. They don't come back twice very often.
Josh, I want to puke. I wanted to puke. I literally did. I got this devastated. I just got sick, you know. But, hey, he got over there, and I popped him out again. And he said, Ryan, congratulations. And then I've got a picture of me petting that dog, and it's a pretty neat. It's a heck of a photo. It's cold, and you can see the fog, or not fog, but
the frost.
It's frosty, but I mean it's, I don't know what you'd call it. Anyways, I'm been over there petting that dog, and it's just Tony Sequoia, I think, took that picture, and man, I could still look at that picture and remember that. You know, it was just awesome. You know. Well,
that's a dream. Anybody, and we all love this sport. We all love doing it. But I couldn't imagine, even when I'm in the finals of a lot smaller hunt than the World Hunt, and you get that, especially when it's the end of the cast, and this coon is to win it. When little kids are talking about baseball and it's the bottom of the ninth with 2 out in the World Series, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and you know, when you've got the coon there's no chance to lose. It's over. You know, that's what makes it feel so good. You know, and your dog went and done their job, and that fit right into that dog's. That's what she was good at. Just steady, you know, and flawless, and that's the best word I got with her. She was pretty flawless at what she did, you know, and I was just so blessed to get her and keep her, which we didn't have her long, and some guys offered us a lot of money back then, a bunch of money, and I'm telling Johnny, hey, what do you think? And he's like, Ryan, I think you're getting along with her. We probably just better keep her. Because I'm telling you, and here's another thing a lot of people don't know. We bought Jessie Jane. I mean, I sold her to Brad Mitchell. I forgot about her. And she's a great dog. Me and her just didn't get along. Me and that dog, but look what she went on to do. One of the winningest dogs
of all time.
I mean, she's won world hunts, all kinds of stuff, you know.
I know Dee, she held a special place in your heart, and I think it would have been that way whether she won that world hunt or not. I mean, I think Dee would have died here no matter what.
There's no
doubt.
Yeah.
But when a dog does something like that, and she's got a coon at the end of the cast, and it's the world hunt or any hunt, but I mean especially the world hunt. I mean, that's wild.
Oh man, it was unreal. And then and here's what was so bad. It wasn't bad. It's just reality. You know, I'm a working man. A lot of people that don't know me, they don't realize. I mean, I would like to not have to work, but I've got to work, and I had to leave there. I was already kind of in a little trouble because I was supposed to have been back to work. This is on Sunday, the best I remember. No, Saturday. I was supposed to have been at work that morning, but now I've got to drive all the way to Ohio. I was working on the rigs, and I drove straight to Chuck and Dana Dunlap's and kicked old D out. And I mean, I've got to thank them. They treated me just like family when I was up there. I mean, fed me. I mean, took care of old D, and I mean, I got to hunt with them. And I'm going to tell you, they are some of the best coon hunters, and the best people I've ever been around in my life. You know.
Well, you think about that and what this sport's done for us, Ryan. I mean, you and my brother are great friends. And me and you and Jed, and
we would have never met
if it wasn't for all this.
And you know that's so you know, it's hard. You know, a guy doesn't think about stuff like that. You take it for granted,
right?
And you don't really sincerely realize it till you sit back and you ponder things. You know, I would have never met them, never been a part of their life, and vice versa. You know, and I mean, I got to see Colton kind of become a younger guy to become the man, you know, and he's a heck of a. They're just awesome. I mean, they really done a lot for me, and Chuck's taught me a lot about. I mean, I'm constantly, man, learning and thinking, and you know, as I've gotten older, I've spent a lot of time hunting.
Yeah.
I've allocated probably way too much time. I mean, I really have, and I mean, it's something that's, you know, you're not ever going to get it back, you know. But old Chuck, man, I've spent laid out with him hunting, and he's asked me questions and brought stuff to my attention and stuff that I didn't quite know, but that's made me a better dog man, I can tell you that.
When I hear world champion 250-time Superstakes finalist or whatever you are, Ryan Crowson, talk about that and how you're learning from people. You know, when you're up there at Jeremy's and me and you are sitting in the truck, or I'm over there with my brother, and don't get me wrong, I try not to listen to my brother.
Yeah.
We love each other, but we don't agree half the time.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, I like picking these guys' brain, and it ain't so much asking questions as just observing.
Yeah.
You know, I see how you handle D and how you talk about dogs and how you do things like this, and, man, I'm filing all that away because that makes us all better houndsmen and better hunters to begin with.
Well, and another thing I'm going to say about Chuck, I mean, old Chuck will hold nearly every dog Chuck's ever trained.
Yeah.
He's held them things in his hand as babies.
Yep.
And he's raised them dogs right there at his house. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you something. You don't go to his house, you're not going to beat him. You're not going to beat his dog there very often.
No.
And he doesn't go a lot. I mean, he doesn't like traveling a lot. I mean, he'll go a little bit, but I'm telling you right now, he will have a top hound at his house nearly all the time. And I know why, because he makes them. He hunts. It's a priority to him, and he raises what he hunts, and he knows the traits of that line of dogs, of Buck Creek dogs. I'd never been around them, but I'm going to tell you, them dogs are special dogs.
Accurate.
Oh, they're accurate. They're
accurate.
Fast, and they strike good, and I mean, they will get in there and get something done.
I remember when Wes had Johnny, which Don had hunted and Chuck had hunted. I mean, that was a good dog. And I'd never hunted with Johnny.
Yep.
And I'd hunted with a lot of Don's stuff. You know, I'd drawn him and everything. You know, when Wes had Johnny over at the house, and it was cold. You know how it gets at our house.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I mean, it was 3 or 4 degrees. It's January. And he had 10, and he had Johnny. And that Johnny just went. I've never seen a dog that could tree coons on the outside no matter the conditions, and he just had them. And I thought, you know, that's a pretty special dog. And then Wes goes, yeah, they're all like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He said when Chuck and Don got him, he goes, they're all like that. You know? He goes, you think he's special, they think he's just a dog, you know?
Yeah.
And so we're talking about relationships. We're talking about D. And D, I know she was special to you, and I love that dog too. I mean, I always enjoyed when you come up and went hunting with her. But she's hard to replace. It's hard to replace a world champion.
Oh, man.
And I know Jeremy sent Venus down to you and stuff like that. But here recently, you got little Laura Lee. She's over here in the crate, snoozing away right now.
I call that the house that D built.
Yeah, that's right. She's in D's crate, which is pretty nice. And you had some success with her already. You know, you got in the final 4 of that truck hunt.
We did, and that little dog, she's probably a little bit young, but I wasn't counting on the weather to be as bad as it was, but I'll tell you, that little dog really done good. And, I mean, I knew the first time I hunted with that dog with your brother, it's been probably 2 months ago, he really thought a lot of her, and she went in through a little slump on him. And he was telling me this, which I didn't know. I'd never seen her. And we'd hunted down at my buddy Mike Williams. Jeremy was headed to maybe Lone Star. Yeah. I don't remember where he was going.
Yeah, he was coming down to the pro showcase there at Lone Star,
And anyways, we hunted with that dog. I kept thinking, he didn't like what she did that night, but he doesn't live in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
People think Oklahoma, there's a lot of coon. We do have great hunting, but
you got a lot of sorry hunting.
January and February down here, it gets tough. And and Jeremy, I don't think realized it because the weather wasn't bad. But I'm just telling you the conditions for treeing a coon.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, and I told Johnny, I said, man, I went hunting with that pup. Jeremy said, I said, man, I kind of like her. Well, it rocks on. I think he goes back home. He comes back to the Black Eyed Pea. He brings his Ranger, and we end up hunting again. No, I didn't get to go with him that time. He stopped at hunting with George Majors and Bob Noble and them, and the little female looked good. Well, he left her at Brad Ratton's and went to the Black Eyed Pea. Well, he called me back and said, hey, weather's bad. I'm going to stay down south and look at some property down Joe Don Stewart's, and we went down there and hunted on Joe Don some ground he's got and his cousin, or Patrick have. And me and him and Brad, and during that time I'd bought a little female, pretty good little female up off of Kenny Overby up in Missouri.
Yep.
Well, I'd been treeing a lot of coons with this dog, and I went down and went hunting with Laura, and Brad had 2 young females, and we treed a bunch of coons, and old Laura, she looked good. Well, I came home, and I told Johnny, I said, "Well, Johnny, this dog I bought, I mean, she's a pretty good dog, but I'm wanting that dog Jeremy's got." You know, you just see a dog and you're thinking, you know, well, it rocks on. Jeremy hunts the next night. I didn't get to go. I had something going on. I go back. Well, I had a little Venus. I was kindling her here.
Yep.
I showed up with her, and Jeremy's like, "What are you doing with that thing?" I said, "I'm just going to hunt her." You know, we hunted Josie, and Garen and Jason Gibson had drove down. They had a sister to Laura and a Mason female. I can't remember what they called her. We treed several coons, 13 or 14 coons on the outside, and it was cold. And anyways, I thought, man, I asked Jeremy, I said, "You ought to sell me that dog." "Oh, no, I ain't selling her. You know how he is."
Oh, yeah.
Well, they had Trey was coming down to bring some horses. There was a big horse sale in Oklahoma City. Well, I met Jeremy up there on Friday. It was just killing me. I was wanting this dog. I was like a little kid wanting some chewing gum, and your parents want, you know, you can't have it. Well, I brought her here and Venus and Josie, and this was on Friday. Saturday, I got to texting him, "Hey, how much?" Wouldn't even respond back. And I know he's got that phone. Well, Sunday he calls me about say I didn't even probably sleep 2 hours that night because I knew he was coming to get this dog, and I didn't want this dog leaving here, and I was just sick, you know. And I thought, man, if I don't get that freaking dog, I'm thinking about I might just hang it up. After Dee died, I just wasn't having.
Well, I knew I talked to you 2 or 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and you wasn't hunting much, and you liked what you was hunting, but it didn't just completely, you know, get your attention. And
I was getting frustrated, and I mean that's the only hobby I have, you know, is coon hunting. Yeah. And believe it or not, I like to pleasure hunt, and I hunt a lot. I mean, I go to what hunts we can go to, but I hunt a lot, and OD, I mean She taught me a lot of things about dogs and coons and just, you know, the style she was. I'd never had a dog like her, you know. And anyways, Jeremy was here picking up the dogs. Well, I brought them other 2 out, you know. I mean, what are they? Venus, you know, great dog.
Yeah.
And we were bartering back and forth this whole time I was trying to buy her from him.
Yeah.
And he's wanting to breed her, and I'm not wanting to. And I kind of made him an offer, and he's like, that ain't quite going to cut it. And we kind of was at a standstill, you know, just one of them deals. I mean, I understand him. It's his dog. I mean, he's got control of, you know. Well, anyways, I go get Laura and put her in his truck, and it was just killing me. And I said, "Jeremy, I need that dog." He said, "Ryan, that dog had a couple of good nights." He said, "She's not what you think she is yet. You know, she's just got a lot of talent."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I want that dog." He said, "Get her out." And I drug that sucker out. I don't remember what all he was saying. I just grabbed that dude, and I went and put her straight back in the kennel. And I said, "Now, what was you saying?" He said, "Take her, get her health checked, and I want you to hunt her. Week, 2 weeks, whatever. And I want you to make sure you want her because he said, "I just think you're pressing."
Yeah.
I said, "No, I'm not. I know I ain't good at many things, but a talent of a dog I'm pretty decent at." And long story short, I took her, had her health done. She's fine. And then me and him ended up going to Arkansas, maybe a week later. Went down there with Chad Doolin hunting on some private ground down there because we thought all these ice was hitting. It was hitting out here. And my wife's like, "You're going to Arkansas?" I said, "Oh, yeah, can't do nothing here." She's like, "Oh, whatever." I mean, I just woke her up and told her that morning we was going. We get down there. It's 63 degrees. Jeremy's about an hour behind me. Me and Chad get met up, and we get snacks, we get all ready, and that crap hits.
Yep.
It's spitting and sleeting. We end up treeing. Josie looked good. Fancy looked pretty good. she looked pretty good for the conditions in some beaver ponds, and we ended up coming home the next morning. There was a big old oak limb that fell down, dang near got her trucks, and anyways, I got her. We ended up buying her, and I've just been polishing on her, just kind of treating her, just hunting her around, and then I had some entries to Arkansas, and I thought, man, I'm not going. And the $100,000 hunt was going, and I could have maybe got an entry to that. And I thought, man, I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on this dog yet. And we went to Claremore. The weather was perfect, and I thought, man, that's a good coon hunt. That'd be a good place. And then, man, we had all that ice hit, and it was bad. But the little dog looked good, I got to shake Joe Manning's hand. His dog really looked exceptional in that cast. Mine did treat me a coon, and got it just wasn't my night. But I'll tell you, she's all right. I mean, she's a baby
for out the gate.
Yeah, 15 months old. That's her first hunt. Yeah. Oh yeah, she's and I've had. Oh, it just reminds me. That dog there reminds me a lot of Hoochie Mama. Reminds me a lot of Dee. No dog's the same, but I just see things in that dog that I really think she's really gonna do good, down the road.
You know how I like to pick your brain whenever we're hunting and stuff, and you talk about you see things and you see this and you see that. As far as a talent scout, you're pretty good at it. So when you're looking at a dog, and I've seen some dogs where, man, I like that dog, and man, you can like different things, but as far as just winning, and you're looking at a young dog like Laura Lee, what are you looking for exactly? I mean, is it just kind of a gut feeling? Is it something that they got to have this or they don't have to have that?
No, I've got some parameters with a dog that and there's a few things I absolutely won't put up with in a dog, but I like a dog to come up with a coon.
Yeah.
And whether I don't like a dog backing, but sometimes they have to.
Yeah.
And the little female I sold her to Lane Leverett, I'm going to tell you, you're going to hear things out of her. She trees way too many coon, and I'm going to end up having her and Laura the exact same age. Yeah. They're going to hunt the Superstakes together. I mean, I'm going to end up. I know in the back of my mind, that dog right there is going to win some money.
Yeah.
She treats too many coons. They're a little different style, and I think the female I sold was set up for the rules that were in place. Yeah. Now the leash lock's back. I don't know how it's going to work. It's hard to say on that. I mean, it does. They make the rules. I'm going to show up and hunt them. It doesn't really matter to me either way. I don't like leading one around, but hey, I've won a lot of casts by being able to dictate it, and I've lost a bunch of them too.
Yeah.
Your night's pretty much over when you get in that position.
I say because we're good about getting dogs that suit us and getting dogs that fit the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and you were talking a little bit ago, before we started the podcast, and they changed the leash lock. It took in effect in November, to where we could cut them every time, no leash lock.
Yep.
And then they changed it back this time. Well, you look at me. You've seen Hazel out in the truck. We bought Hazel when there was no leash lock just 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking this dog here could do some damage with no leash lock. She kind of treats coons as you come to them. She ain't flying through the world.
Yep.
But she's a dog that if you leash lock her, she's going to get dominated. Especially a dog that's running through an ambush and coons and barking a lot. You're going to get beat, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And so when you're talking about dogs that fit rules, it's hard to get the right dog when the rules are changing every 3 months.
Well, and I felt like, bless her heart, when Dee passed, I thought, with the new rules coming in, I'd told a couple of guys, I said, man, that's not going to fit old Dee very good, And I mean, she went on to other places, so it doesn't matter now. But I hunted in. She
went on to doggy heaven. If there's a doggy heaven, Dee's in it.
I buried that dog under the first. She treed a coon, the first coon she ever treed for me. I took her back. I hunt down there a bunch, and I buried her under that tree.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I hunt down there a lot. I'm down there, and I pay homage, when I'm down there, and I've showed a few of the guys, where it's at, and it's in a pretty. I mean, it's kind of like hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
It's easy to see it, but I hunted in some hunts. I hunted Alan's dog, the dog he bought from Chuck and them. And I'm going to be honest with you, if the old rules were in place, it changed the outcome of them casts up Quapaw. and we did a bunch of walking, treat a bunch of coons, and it would change the outcome though.
Yeah.
I mean, and probably Vicksburg, it probably did there too.
Yep.
Truth be known, you know.
Yep. I know I was at the Lone Star Pro Classic, and I didn't win that cast. But Melvin, we've cut Melvin off his first coon. I've treated a coon, Melvin's treated a coon. We've all treated a coon together or something like that anyway. But we're scoring Melvin's tree, and I can tree scent through the country a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I get scent treed. We recut Melvin. Melvin gets treed again. And Gracie is treed, through yonder. He's already declared her treed. Uh-huh. The other dog, the yellow dog, comes in, covers Melvin. So everything's treed. And if Melvin has a coon, it don't matter if I have a coon. But there's going to be time for me to cut. Mm-hmm. Under the old rules, and I know Preston Bowles was in that cast, and he was the judge. Or he was the non-hunting judge in that cast, and he was going to have to walk. Gracie was all the way back by the truck, and then he had to come score Melvin, and then he had to come score me. Or had to come score me, and then he had to come score Melvin. So he's going to hike. Mm-hmm. But under the old rules, I'm walking all the way back to Gracie. I'm walking all the way back to Melvin with scent on the leash.
Yep.
And I got to recut her, and I got to get her treat again. Now she had a den; it didn't matter.
Right, but you had an opportunity.
But I had the opportunity to cut her, and so we tailor these dogs to these rules. And you said a dog like D, wouldn't be fit for. Under the new rules with no leash lock, and then the leash lock gets moved around and changed. But it's hard to get a dog that we think can win. And there's, like you said, variables. Mm-hmm. There's so many variables, and we kind of got to have a steady sight on the rule part of it.
Yeah, but here's another thing you got to remember: it doesn't matter what the rules are. Mm-hmm. The same type of dog is going to usually win. Something that has his coon.
That is true.
And something that's flawless getting that dude done, not giving any points back.
Yep.
That's going to always kind of rise up, I think, But and leaves are another variable that some dogs get by with missing one. And that's why I shied away from a lot of the bigger hunts with D with the leaves out. I just thought that was an extra opportunity for – I wanted it to be the kind of tougher conditions for my dog, you know. But it is what it is. I mean, those rules. They've been in store for years, and some of the other kennel clubs they've gone with no leash lock with a few other little tweaks. But
I know in UKC it's different because the dogs are together a lot. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that's not knocking them dogs or the handlers or UKC or anything like that. But it's a different style.
Yep.
So it works a little better in UKC. I get it. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to bang on PKC because I do that on this podcast too much anyway. And they're all my friends. I love them to death, you know. Yeah. But, we're going to keep going. We'll keep plugging away.
I don't think no matter what PKC could do, they're going to have so many people mad. They're going to have more people mad than they are happy. No matter, they could be giving out $100 bills, and somebody might say something about what color they were. That's sad, but it is the truth.
Mm-hmm. It is the truth, and they're all good folks. We love them all.
Oh yeah.
So Ron, one thing I do want to touch on before we shut this off. You talked about style. How the dog's style has changed over the last just 10 years. They're different kind of dogs.
They are. We've bred, and I think before the Garmins were available to us, or the GPS, we sometimes had to let dogs get by with things. Yeah. We had to because we didn't really know.
Yeah.
Hey, this dog coming back down that track, you don't really know.
Yeah.
Well, now I think we put a lot of pressure on these dogs. And some of them don't take it good. Some of them do. And, we've bred them too, but I think as a rule, most of these dogs are already getting molded into something before they've ever really even came into what they were going to originally be born to do. Oh. And then, we're wanting these dogs fast, independent. We want them to have a coon. Well, there's things that come with that. A slower dog is probably going to treat you more coon. But now, these ones that are bombing through there and bombing one, they're going to win some too. There's no doubt. And terrain can be a variable in that too. But, normally my dogs here, I get one that I've hunted here a while, I can take that dog nearly anywhere. Now, the southeast, South Carolina and stuff, my dogs ain't never done too good down there. It's pretty tough. Very tough.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think we've got maybe better type of dogs today. Now, I don't think litter by litter you're getting as many of the, I'm not saying common, but you're not getting, used to you get a litter of pups, they were all usable dogs. You might have a superstar in there. Well, now you may have a litter of dogs and you get one outstanding dog. The rest of them maybe aren't what you're looking for,
right.
And it's funny because I don't consider myself a breeder, but I mean I've been around dogs. Like me and Johnny went and bought all the Zeb 3 semen we could get our hands on. We knew we were just sitting at Salem thinking, man, every big hunt there is any kennel club, every big hunt, there's a Zeb 3 dog in there that you got to beat.
Yeah.
And then, we've got a female now down there getting bred. A friend of ours is a Mr. Clean female. It's a reproducing, got some outstanding pups on the ground. And we're thinking in our mind they're going to be May pups, be spring, and Laura's in the fall, and it'll work out. If one of them hit, who knows if it will. But I think, man, these dogs I think the Garmins have really had more to do with some of these dogs than the blood. We're constantly, from a dog's 8 or 10 months old, he has no time out there to get by with anything because we know if he's running a road, we know if he's running down a ditch barking, or whatever, and as people, we're wanting to have a better dog, know, and we're going to try to do stuff where I think beforehand them dogs got by with a lot of stuff. Then they kind of molded into what they were. Then you kind of polished them into something,
And that speaks on to longevity, too, because in mid-'90s to maybe early 2000s, or, what I've been around it, those dogs were winning were 6, 7, 8 years old. Male dogs, too.
Oh, yeah.
They had a chance to be a dog.
Yeah. You think of a dog, or the last dominant dog that I think of before like Meltdown and them was that Rat dog, Triple Creek Rat. He won the World Hunt. He won the Nationals. That thing won everything.
Yeah.
He was a dominant dog. He struck good, but the thing about him always was under them coons.
Yeah.
And I would say if you had a Garmin training him now, hey, I don't know if that dog would have made what he made.
Yeah.
There had to be times where that dog got to get by with stuff, and even with Laura here, there's stuff she does out there I don't like, but even with Dee, I'm going to go back to that. I demand a lot out of a dog. Mm-hmm. I feel like I take as best care of them as I can, and man, when we're out there hunting, I'm always on the time. I'm watching the time. Hey, I hunted. I remember this. I'm going to go back to this. We had pro hunt in Callister, Oklahoma. Hey, a lot of coons down there.
Yeah.
It's in April every year. Hey, it's good hunting here. I won a pro hunt with Dee down there, and we hunted 6 hours. I hunted 3 casts, 2-hour cast. She trees 1 coon per cast. But I won this pro hunt.
Yeah.
Think about that, Josh.
Yeah.
6 hours, 3 coons.
We wouldn't put up with that today.
Yeah. But you really go to thinking about it, that if you think about it, a dog ought to have a coon treat every 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But, I've thought about that.
Yeah. And
that doesn't happen very often, but, I look back and thought of that. Where, like, I won a pro hunt with Venus in La Plata, Missouri, and I'm going to tell you this, treat 4 coon a cast.
Yeah.
5.
Yep.
It's just different.
Yep, it is.
But, I don't know. I know that I feel like there is a lot of good dogs out there. I've hunted with that Melvin dog. I really like that dog. Yeah. There's a bunch of dogs I've hunted with that are great dogs. And that's kind of probably why you see a lot of different dogs winning. There's still a few that always are in there collecting, though. people can say, oh, they're at every hunt. Well, hey, everyone they're at, they usually getting a check. You know, I mean, they're paying. Most of them dogs are paying their own way. A lot of them are.
And it's hard to win at them pro classics, and it's hard to win at nationals in the world. And it's difficult.
It's you go to a pro classic. What it is, it's about a concentrated, semifinal or a Friday night late of a world hunt. I mean, you're congregated in there pretty tight. Or the nationals, you get into them late rounds at the nationals on Friday night. I mean, there you are, and you go to them pro classics like me and you drew out. I think at Sean Woods. You had Rain. Wes had Ruby. And Steve Yan had a little dog.
He had Jock.
No, he had the dog called Devil Ants. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He did have
dog. Them guys he's out of Montclair. And I ain't gonna lie, man. I've got that young dog of Allen's, Slider or Homer, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is we're going to test him out.
Well, here's the thing, Ryan. I'm thinking the same thing. And here I am with a 6-year-old female, and I've got the world champion, and I've got truck hunt winners, and I've got the winningest dog of all time at the time. And I got to beat all them. And it's like that every hunt.
Oh, yeah.
You draw good dogs.
Yeah, and you beat us that night, got us leash locked. I mean, hey, and you won the next night. I draw Ruby again. And I thought, oh, my God, I can't get away from her. And I drew Ruby and Salt and the dogs that
are hard to beat, especially at Sean's.
And they're kind of up there. And like I told Alan, I said, man, I've thrown this dog into the wolves. But, hey, he done good. I mean, I won the next night with him. And, that little dog, he
didn't really do anything wrong the night we drew him either. That dog didn't do nothing wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong with the World Hunt either. That dog was really busted out there.
I know it.
In tough conditions in a place that looked like it had just been, it looked like it had been dogged all week, and it was a good spot.
Well, I told
But
Alan,
them coons weren't down,
I'm out the World Hunt, and I hunted that dog. Let's see here. I hunted him all week because me and you drew him last night. And I'm like, Alan, I can't believe this dog hadn't got in yet. But I said, I haven't caught any breaks. Nothing. Well, that night with you, I caught a little bit of a break. He treed that coon in the people's yard down there.
He did.
And but the late round, he was treed in there 1.6. And I'm going to win this cast, but the other little dog makes a circle tree. Beats me on. I don't have no circle. And we hear him clears the bell 1.6 across through there. He went a little bit too far.
Carrying mouth. You can hear that dog forever.
You can hear that devil forever.
Well, he was a mile whenever he treated that damn coon there, and it sounded like he was in her hip pocket. When you got close to him, he didn't sound super loud, but you got a long ways. He sounded like he was there too.
And that's another trait with them Buck Creek dogs. They got them piercing carrying mouths. You can really hear them.
Ryan, first of all, I appreciate all the hospitality. Your wife's been great. You've been great. You let me come down here and record this podcast. We're going to go hunting in a little bit. You're one of my best friends, and I really appreciate it. And the knowledge that you bring to this is important too. And so I want to make sure, do you have anything else to add before we shut this down? It's been really great.
Man, I've got a lot of guys. I'm wanting to thank them all. And if I name one, I'll forget 10, And I mean, most of them know who they are. I mean, I got, a lot of them. I got a couple buddies here, Richard Hulls and, Possum and Jace Lewis. I mean, believe it or not, them guys have spent a lot of time with these dogs. All these dogs we've been talking about, they've helped me with them. And it's hard to do stuff by yourself sometimes. You can hunt a dog, but you can't get a lot of training. And probably not without them guys, I wouldn't have had all the success, that I've been blessed having, And then, you take, there's a lot of hunters, Leon Sparks, Rick Lynch. There's a bunch of guys that's hauled me around as a kid, and that's probably not easy to do, looking back on it. There ain't a lot of kids anymore that, coon hunting. Here's another thing about it. It's always fun to me, even when it's bad. I'm so dumb, I guess. I'm trying to find the most positive thing and then, build from that, even on bad nights. But I've just been, I'm fascinated with dogs. I love seeing a good dog. I don't mind. And I think there's a lot of them out there, I really do.
That's one of the reasons, and I think you feel the same way, that we love those pro classics.
Yes.
Because we love watching, and I don't like getting beat any more than you do, but I love seeing good dogs work.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's where they're at right now.
Yep. And I tell a lot of guys here that I don't call it fortunate. I mean, they they think one thing. They think, man, my dog can't compete, and I'll tell them, hey, all you need to do is pony up and go. Yep. You'd be surprised. That thing right there is as good as what we got, you know.
Yep. And they think these dogs that we're winning all this money with are an end-all, be-all, and you know just as well as I do, they're just dogs. Mm-hmm. You know, they can get beat, and don't get me wrong, they're good.
Yep.
They're really good. But there's a lot of guys out there that are also packing good dogs, too, that don't get the opportunity to hunt at the hunts that we get to hunt at.
Yeah, you know, I meet with Alan Stonecipher and Brad Ratton. Mm-hmm. Alan kind of lives in the middle of us, and we meet down there. You know, we try to a bunch, but it doesn't, you know, maybe once a month or so. Yep. But that's when I go try to measure my dogs, because them guys got 2 world-class dogs. Right. I mean, they don't get to take them a bunch.
Yep.
But Brad's got Shooter, and Alan's got Slider, which, you know, his name was Homer, and I took Laura Lee down there. I didn't have her too long, and she held her own pretty good with them, you know. And we were talking, you know, if we'd have been in a cast, who knows? Yep. I mean, she probably would have lost, but I mean, she had me in the game. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, especially out of 15 months old.
Oh yeah.
All right, Ryan, we're going to wrap it up. Like I said, I can't thank you enough for letting me sit down with you. I sure appreciate it. Yep. It's been really great.
I appreciate you coming, bud.
Yeah, we're going to go tree some coons.
We're going to get something to eat first.
We're going to have some supper. It's going to be a good time.
Yep. Okay.
We'll close it out here. This is Josh Michaelis with the Houndsman XP Podcast Network, the truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.